another video. So today's video, I'm actually going to be doing a series review, and as you can see from the books behind me, I am going to be doing a review of the Throne of Glass series, which I'm super excited about because, oh my gosh, I freaking love this series. I got caught up to book 5 last month in January. I just marathon books 2 through 5 and the novellas, and I absolutely loved it, so I have to do a series review on it. And don't worry, this video is gonna be totally non-spoilers, so if you haven't read the Throne of Glass series yet, this video is going to be completely non-spoilery, so you guys can stick around. I will be doing a spoiler review because there's just so much to talk about. I've got so many feels, so I'm definitely going to be doing a spoiler review. But for now, this is the non-spoiler, so stick around. So I'm just gonna get into some of my pros and cons of what I liked about this series and what kind of didn't work so much for me. And yeah, I'll talk about that. Like I said, I won't get into any details because I don't want to get into anything spoilery. I'll save that for the spoiler discussion. But if you don't know, Throne of Glass, the first book, it's basically the premise is about an assassin named Celaena Sardothien, and she gets entered into this competition to become the king's champion. So she's got to compete against 20-something other thieves and assassins and stuff. To become the king's champion. And basically, if she becomes the king's champion, what that means is she will be the personal assassin for the king of Ardalan. So that's pretty much the premise of the first book without getting into any spoilers. I do have a full review of the first book, and I will leave that link in the description below. I just absolutely love this series. One thing that I love about it is that from book 1 to book 5, the plot just evolves so much and it becomes so complex and complicated, and it's just like, am I even reading the same series? It's like what we started off with in book 1, so completely different to where we're at now in book 5. It's like, how did this happen? But, so good, you guys, so good. So, yeah, there is a lot that goes down in this series. And I just love the way the plot evolves. I love the way the characters evolve as well. The character development was really well done with Celaena, with Dorian, with, just a lot of the characters, go through these changes and character growth. And so I thought it was really well done. I really liked how this is written. So the characters are really well developed. They've got, we see their strengths and weaknesses and their flaws, and we get to see them grow and change throughout the series. So I really liked how the character development was done, especially for Celaena, because we see her most as the main character. And I just really like seeing how she evolved from book 1 to now. Another thing I like about this series is there is just so many twists and turns and revelations in this series that I'm just like, oh my gosh, what? I mean, seriously, the amount of times I've said holy crap or WTF when I was reading the series, I was just like, what? What just happened? What is going on? So there's so many twists and turns and revelations, and most of them you don't see coming. Like, I didn't see them coming. A lot of times, they're with stories you can kind of see what's coming and you can kind of see the twists and turns before it happens. This series, most of the twists and turns and revelations, I'm like, what? When did this happen? What just happened? Yeah, so that, kudos to Sarah J. Maas for doing a great job with that, because I'm just like, I did not see those coming at all. Totally had me fooled. Another thing I like about this series is it's super action-packed, so it's very fast-paced, and I love fast-paced and action-packed books. And of course it's going to be action-packed because the main character is an assassin, so you would expect a lot of action. So I really like that about this series. I love fast-paced, action-packed books and series. So that was another thing I love. The world as well. I love the world and the way it's the world building in this world. I will say at times it was kind of confusing, a little bit confusing, as far as the rules about the magical creatures and stuff, which I can't really explain too much in this video because it gets into spoilers, but I will go into that when I get into my spoiler review. But there were just a couple times when some things I was just a little bit confused about, but by the end of the 5th book, it pretty much explains it. And that's the other thing with this world is you're learning a little bit more and more about the world in each book. So you, especially when you get to the 3rd book, because now the 3rd book takes place in a different setting from the first 2. So now you get to learn a little bit more about the world. And so you learn a little bit more and more with each book. And so I thought that was really cool and interesting. Like I said, it did confuse me a bit at times, but by the end of the 5th book, it pretty much cleared things up. Also, I want to say the characters in here, some of the characters I just absolutely love, and especially some of the newer characters that are introduced in books 3, 4, and 5. I really like some of the newer characters, and especially because in the 3rd book, Air of Fire, we get introduced to several new characters, and a couple of them I didn't like at first, but then they kind of grew on me, and now I love them. But with that, with the 3rd book, some of the characters that were introduced and their stories at first kind of confused me, because I was like, okay, what does this have to do with our main story and our other characters? I don't get the connection of why this is being brought up. But then when you get to books 4 and 5, it explains it a lot more, and you start to figure out, okay, this is why they were introduced, and this is why we were learning about their story in the 3rd book, and it makes more sense then. But just reading the 3rd book, I was like, what's the point of this? Why are they in here? Why are we learning about them? But it does make sense when you get to the later books, and it all ties in to the bigger story, the main story, And so that is something that I thought was really cool and really interesting, was how she ties it all together, because you're just like, okay, where's this going? But it does tie in together and it works really well. So I really like that too. Another thing I liked about the series were the friendships. So there's the romantic relationships in the series, which I won't really talk about in this video. I will talk about it more in my spoiler review. But obviously there's a few romantic relationships in this series. But then the friendships, I really liked how the friendships were done with Selena and Nehemia. I really enjoyed seeing their friendship, and then also later on with her and Lysandra, which Lysandra was another one that I didn't really like at first, but then she grew on me, and now she's like one of my favorite characters. So Selena and Lysandra are two of my favorite characters in this series, and I was just like, I didn't like you at first, but now I really love you, and you're awesome. So yeah, I really like Lysandra, and I especially really like hearing her backstory and kind of what she went through, because it makes her, more real, more relatable, whereas, kind of in the beginning, we kind of see her and she just seems like this stuck up, snobby girl. But then we find out more about her, and I ended up loving her, and she is one of my favorite characters now. So yeah, like I was saying, I love the friendship between Selena and Lysandra, and how they became friends too, because same thing, like I was saying, I didn't like Lysandra in the beginning. Well, Selena hated her in the beginning and wanted to kill her, but the way they become friends, and now they're actually pretty close, and I'm just like, I like their friendship. I will say though that I do think there needs to be more male friendships shown in the series. I mean, I know there's Dorian and Kale, and they are, pretty much like brothers. They're best friends, and I do really enjoy seeing Dorian and Kale's friendship. But I felt like some of the other male characters in this book, in this series, we don't really get to see their friendships, like their male friendships. Like, I don't know, I feel like Adian doesn't really have close guy friends. I mean, yeah, he's sort of friends with Rowan and Dorian and stuff. They work together, but it's not like, it's not the friendship that you see with Dorian and Kale, where it's like they're almost like brothers and would do anything for each other. You don't really get that same thing with Adian, or even with Rowan or Lorcan, or a lot of the other guys. So that's one thing I kind of wished we got to see a bit more of. But yeah, that's a tiny bit of a downfall. Some of my other cons with this series is, so there is one particular trope that is done in the series over and over, and normally I actually really like this trope, but it's been done so many times in the series that I think it's like just overdone and like just too much. And that is the relationship trope of how the characters get together and fall in love. So with the series, most of the couples in the series start off like hating each other, or they can't stand each other. Either both of them can't stand each other, or one of them is just like, no, I don't want nothing to do with you, get away from me. So, they start off not liking each other, can't stand each other, and then eventually they become friends, and then they fall in love, and then they're a couple and they're together. And normally I actually really like that trope. Like, I like when they're kind of, no, I don't like you, get away from me at first, but then they slowly become friends and learn more about each other and realize, they're actually not that bad, and then eventually fall in love. And I typically like that trope, but it's done so many times in the series that I think it's just overkill. Like, it's overdone. I think there's only 2 couples in the series that have gotten together without this trope of, I hate you and now we're friends and now I love you. I think there were only 2 couples that started off where it was like they didn't start off hating each other. So I do think it's been done too many times in this series that I want to see, I want to see it differently. I want to see the couples get together in a different way. The other downside to the series is I feel like the villain in the later books, because the villain we start off with in books 1 and 2, it's not the villain that we have in book 5. Like I said, I don't want to get into spoilers really. I hope that's not a spoiler. I don't think so. But anyways, so yeah, the villain that we have in the later on books, I don't feel like intimidated or scared by this villain as I should be. And I don't know if it's maybe because we don't see him enough he's kind of detached. We don't see him enough for me to be intimidated by him or to feel like, oh, okay, he's really bad. We need to take him down, like, now. So, yeah, I don't get that urgency. Like, I get why it's important to take him down, get him out of the picture, and I understand the urgency of it, but at the same time, I'm just like, I don't have any strong feelings towards him one way or another. And I feel like as a villain of a story, I should either really, really hate you and despise you because you're a villain, and depending on what you're doing, I should really, really hate you and despise you. Or if you're like the redeemable type of villain, I should at least maybe feel sorry for you and maybe want you to change and be redeemed. But I don't really feel any way towards this villain. I'm just like, okay, you're the villain, you're there, moving on now. So, I don't know, I'm not having any really strong feelings towards this villain. So, although I will say there are 2 other characters in the later on books that are not necessarily the villains, but I hate them so much that they definitely should have been the main villain, because these 2 characters, I'm just like, die already, please, just someone kill them already. So, like, that's how I should feel about the main villain of the story. I should be like, we need to kill them already. someone needs to get rid of them. Selena, you need to kill them. But not really how I feel. I'm just like, yeah, you're there. Okay. So that was kind of the downside. But I still love this series. There's just so much goodness in it that I absolutely love. And I love the characters. I love the story and the plot, how it evolves. I love the world here. There's just so much to love about the series. So, I will say, before I sort of wrap up and move on to my spoiler discussion, I will say, two things about this series. One is, so with the Assassin's Blade, which is the novellas, it's a set of, I think, 5 novellas, and it's a prequel to the Throne of Glass series. It's set before the events of Throne of Glass, and I will say I read Assassin's Blade. I think I read it after Heir of Fire, before I got into Queen of Shadows. And I will say that I wished I had known to read it before Throne of Glass. I think I would have preferred to read it before Throne of Glass. I think it was published right after Heir of Fire, which I think is why I read it after Heir of Fire. But I do think I would have preferred to have read it before starting the Throne of Glass series, only because there's so much that happens that leads up to, what happened in Throne of Glass, that I'm just like, now it makes so much sense. How Selena was in Endovier at the beginning of the book, why she was there, and all the events that led up to her being in Endovier. Now all of this makes sense, and we also get to see Sam, who is talked about so much in the series, especially in the first book. We see Selena in the first one. She's mourning Sam, the loss of him. And we're just like, the Sam sounds like a great guy, but I wish we could have met him. And we do see him in Assassin's Blade. We get to meet him, and we get to see him and Selena's relationship. That's like, I like this. I like knowing what happened before. And then the other thing with reading the Assassin's Blade before Throne of Glass, I think would help, because in the series, Selena, her character, evolves and changes over time, and I just think it's harder to see those changes that she's made and then go back to a prequel where she's back to her, before changed Selena, and it's just like, So I would personally recommend, if you haven't started the series yet and you want to pick it up and start it, I would say start with Assassin's Blade before even going into Throne of Glass. That's what I wish I would have done. And when I reread these, because I will reread them eventually, when I reread the series, I definitely will start with Assassin's Blade before getting into Throne of Glass. The last thing I kind of want to say with the series is it's most of the books from books 1 through 4 are pretty tame, pretty PG-13-ish, I guess. Empire of Storms, the 5th book, you get towards the middle and the end of the book. And there's some scenes in there that are very graphic and very sexual in nature and very graphic. And it just jumped from PG-13 to, okay, now we are in rated R. And I wasn't expecting this in this series. Because, I mean, I think it was in Crown of Midnight, we did see, we have, Selena did sleep with another character. I'm not going to say who, because that would be a spoiler. But we did see her character sleep with another character, but it wasn't, it wasn't done in a graphic, like, they didn't show us everything that was going on type of way. It was kind of like, they made out, they blah, 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 and then they slept together, and now we're on to the next scene. But in Empire of Storm, it's like, oh, they are going there. They are telling us everything, and we are seeing everything. Just wanted to put it out there as a warning if you are a parent and your kids are wanting to read the series or are reading the series. So just to give you a heads up, the 5th book does get graphic. So, yeah, you might want to be a little bit careful about what parts you have your kids read in that book. So, yeah. So that's it for my non-spoiler review, you guys. Stick around and I will have a spoiler review up for you guys. So definitely go check that out. And yeah, that's it for this review. I will see you guys in the spoilers. Bye.